Hi, everybody. We're live. This is Loren Baker, founder of Search Engine Journal, and welcome to today's episode of the Search Engine Journal show. With me, I have Jeff Ferguson from Amplitude Consulting. Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
It's going great. How you doing?
Pretty good, thank you. Amplitude Digital. I'm sorry, we just cleared that up right before the show, and I got it wrong already. So let's start on a good note. So
you got the
welcome to
Amplitude
the
right.
show.
Everything else
Yeah,
is
hey,
fine.
I got it. So yeah, welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about PPC trends, especially getting ready for 2022. Hopefully all of you are ready for holiday season already because it's literally right around the corner.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not sure. Well, let's get right into it. So from a PPC perspective, especially anybody that's doing Google search, Google shopping, is there time? Is there time to make any tweaks right now to get ready for the shopping season?
Yeah, I mean it's luckily it's still digital when it comes right down to it, and so you could be making tweaks up until Black Friday if you wanted to. I mean we spent the last 3 months before October actually telling everybody to get your act together and start earlier, and we actually succeeded in some cases. We had some of our clients that were rolling out in October already, and while they're not necessarily putting up pictures of Christmas trees and things like that, but they were definitely getting some early prep starts. They started up in their budgets. They started expanding keywords, things, and just really kind of moving in the right direction, stuff, making sure that what they had envisioned for shopping was going to be in place, or any other plans that they wanted to do were there already. But that said, we still have things where on Thanksgiving we're running around. I'm trying to make sure the turkey's cooking properly, and I'm still telling people to check, just say, hey, what's going on with this? Is this moved? Whatever it is, let's get this last thing up. But it's all the planning in the world still works out the way it is. Agency life, all that. Yeah,
I know. So there's still time. So I got kicked off really quickly. I think the whole Amplitude thing kind of made me a little bit nervous. But let's back up a little bit, Jeff. So how about an introduction?
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, our audience, listeners, viewers.
Sure.
A little bit about yourself, your background, and what your core competencies are from a paid search, paid media perspective.
Sure. I've actually been in digital marketing for over 25 years. I guess I'm one of the old men of the business. We were talking before we went on the air, like you and I have crossed paths many times over the years, different shows and things like that. And I've certainly been in that camp for this whole time. I came out of school kind of accidentally falling into digital marketing, and back in 95, just because I had degrees in computer science and communications, and I originally wanted to be a copywriter, but everybody was talking about the internet, and I spent my first 15 years on the corporate side of things. I was the first head of digital for companies like Hilton Hotels Corporation and Kimberly-Clark, and I was actually the last head of digital marketing for Napster before they got sold off to Best Buy. Wow. And so I've had this very fun ride on it. Other turns of either consulting or showing up for companies like Experian and lower my bills and a few startups here and there and whatnot. And after that kind of run, I had one more corporate appearance, a company called local.com, which eventually imploded. But it was one of the largest paid search campaigns that was actually run at the time. I think on every list as far as top spenders in the United States, local was usually coming in at 4th or 5th back in the time it was running, and it was certainly the largest directory that was advertising it at the time. And it was it was a massive campaign. It was actually spread out over 7 different accounts, and mostly because they kept acquiring different companies to make themselves what they were and everything. So it was pretty funny. But when that one started
who was the original founder or CEO of local.com? His name's escaping me right
now. Yeah, it just lost me too. It didn't end well for him, and so it's probably best I don't say his name anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, I think there was some embarrassment in the later days of that one, but after I left at least. But yeah, it was good. But when that kind of imploded, I decided to take my severance and stock options and all that kind of stuff. And I started my company, which was Fang Marketing. And I ran that for about a decade, and we had all kinds of fun clients. We were doing SEO projects for people like the Smithsonian and Manchester United and Sony Pictures Television and massive paid search campaigns for people like Just Fab and all their other little fabs and just tons of other, that ran the gamut from pure play e-commerce to branding plays. We were doing stuff for Prestige Brands, which was a massive conglomerate that owns all these little brands that you've heard of your entire life, like Comet and stuff like that. So we really did that for a long stretch. And then just before the pandemic started, I started talking to Amplitude. And like literally on the day that most of the world was shutting down in 2020, we signed the paperwork for the merger. So where I actually, Fang became part of the Amplitude family over here. And I took on the role of, I'm one of the partners, but I'm also head of production over there. But we've also got a fantastic stable of clients over here that really just in anything and everything as far as types going. A lot of beauty, a lot of clothing. There's just some fun ones. We've also got the largest quilting store in the United States where we've got as a client and a few other kind of fun ones out there. We just did one that's for a seaweed company. I mean, so we really have a really good time with working on that one. I've always kind of, as far as core competencies goes, I was always really proud of the fact that it was just about anything and everything digital. I really made sure that like as things became available, like I said, well, I should learn how to do this and incorporate it. So, I started off as a very basic kind of like webmaster in the time and was doing what I used to call organic marketing, which was SEO before it was SEO and kind of touched that a lot, but it was also doing all the coding and resetting servers and things like that. But as it kind of like bloomed and new things came about, as paid search became a thing, which was about the time I was at Hilton Hotels, we made sure we jumped into that right away as social media really started to really take off, which is around the times of Napster. We made sure we got that. So I really look at as digital marketing as just a fun toy box of things and take a more classic media planner type of viewpoint in these things to where it's like, hey, look, these are all the things we can do. And when we plan things around the agency, we look at it from a really holistic, consumer journey style kind of approach where it's like, hey, what fits best? And sometimes it's paid search, sometimes it's paid social, sometimes it's organic, sometimes it could be programmatic. I mean, it really kind of touches everything. And these days, since I'm like head of production, I don't get my hands dirty as much, but I really try to as often as I can to really be the one every now and then I'll take an account myself just to make sure that I'm still seeing what the interface looks like and
make sure you still got it.
Stuff. Yeah, exactly. And it's still fun. I got to give it credit. It's after 25 years, there's always something new, always something that's changing, always some new language, that you have to kind of pick up in this thing. And then when I'm not doing all this stuff with the agency stuff, I'm an adjunct professor over at UCLA. And I teach digital marketing, their advanced digital marketing class. That's part of their regular curriculum. And then last year, we actually launched their first SEO course. So I'm the only one that teaches that one over there. So I get pulled into that quite often. And it's part of several different programs that they use. And matter of fact, I taught that this morning before I came back over here and jumped on the program. But so it's... I don't sleep much, I guess is what I'm getting to. The point I'm getting to right here. If I'm not doing that, I'm playing with my 3D printer in my garage or something like that. So I've got that kind of my girlfriend the other day called me like you're kind of like a Sherlock Holmes character. You've always got something going, and you're studying something. You've got
something going on.
Something you're reading 3 different books in different parts of the house or whatever it is. So it's. Well,
that's really the beauty of what we do.
Yeah.
That's really the beauty of what we do. It changes from day to day. So it's amazing. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for jumping on today, Jeff. Also like to thank our sponsors, Adzuma and SEMrush, for making today's show possible. And as a reminder to anyone that may be watching live on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter, if you go ahead and leave comments, Jeff and I can both see them. So I see Sven, Ali, Stephanie, Marwa, like everybody's kind of jumping on, leaving comments right now. So if you're on LinkedIn right now, this is our third show on LinkedIn Live since we were approved for it. Go ahead and leave a comment. Really interesting to see the engagement that happens on LinkedIn is pretty amazing. So it was a little bit underestimated on our end. We ended up getting, like I said, about 3 weeks ago, we ended up getting approved for LinkedIn Live, Jeff. And then like right before we got on the show, we got an email from them. So we're like, okay, we'll add it to StreamYard. Boom, add it. Suddenly all kinds of new views and everything else. So
That's
yeah,
fun.
really, really cool. And it seems like the video quality when I watch it, when I rewatch myself on LinkedIn, is a little bit better than some of the other platforms as well.
Yeah,
But
I'll have to play with this one a little bit. And Ali, thank you so much for making me feel old by telling me that's, when you were born was 25 years ago. I always love to hear that. I've got people on my staff that do the same thing where they go, oh, she says, oh, I was born this. I go, yeah, that's when I graduated high school. Thanks for making me feel ancient. That's
sometimes I'll purposely go to an airport bar so they card me. So, so Jeff, one of the reasons that we had you on today is because we just put out our PPC Trends 2022 ebook, which you contributed to, and we kind of kicked off the show talking about the ability to still get ready for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, BFCM, and then also any as long as the clients have inventory to sell with the supply chain thing going on, the ability to get ready for the holiday shopping season. But I wanted to also discuss, what changes have you seen? What are some of the most interesting changes, launches, adaptations to PPC that you've seen this year in 2021? And where do you see that going heading into next year?
So I think the one of the most interesting things to it as far as changes go and what it is, and I think they are kind of harbinger of kind of what's to come in 2022, because it's gonna be more of it, and maybe in like even bigger versions of it. Is a lot of these changes we've seen that have to do with like third-party tracking and third-party cookies and targeting and things like that. All these things that I think the industry got really used to over the years, as far as using certain audiences and certain tracking abilities and mixing things together to kind of create certain audiences and whatnot. And with Apple making its change on the iOS level, whatever it is, with everybody having an opt-in, and we're only seeing about 14% of people actually like taking that dive, and it's dramatically changed things so far, and then there's all these other classic changes that they've made, which some of them I totally agree with. On the Facebook side, they've made changes as far as like you can't target certain aspects of it because they probably were being abused in certain ways, but there's other ones where you're going to go, oh, that one was useful, that was really good, I can't see how that was hurting anybody, but it's already starting to do things, and we're kind of having to retrain a lot of clients to let them know that, like, hey, look, some of these things that have changed, the audiences has gone, whatever it is, and there's nothing we can do about that, and we'll have to find other opportunities, and that's just like the agency life. But some of it are we're having to like train them on the idea of, hey, look, just because this tracking change doesn't mean the audience really ran away. Like, it's one of the things where most likely they're still buying, or most likely still doing this. And just because we can't record this conversion through Facebook or through whatever it is, because the windows have tightened up or whatever it is, or that we just can't track them all, it's not like they're really not happening. It's just that we're not tracking it properly. And I think that is a really interesting sign of the dependency we've gained, as far as it's this attitude of like, hey, look, we're not going to use it if we can't track it and things like that, and which is remarkable given the world that we came out of, which is traditional media and things like that, where they couldn't track anything. They could really say that they run, and maybe they had some direct marketing kind of tricks as far as putting coupon codes and stuff like that to it, and that was about as good as you get. But 800 numbers and stuff like that, which we still use a lot of these tricks, but for the most part, like, it's not like, I mean, you really weren't even tracking impressions properly when you bought on television, or the circulations and things like that. It was really all a guess, and suddenly do you have access to everything? And then the fact that it contracted a little bit because of some of some changes in privacy and whatever it is, you really kind of have to push back on some of the complaints as far as like, well, this is terrible and we're not going to use this anymore, whatever it is, and go, wow. Let's not shoot ourselves in the foot here. There's still people on the other end of this. There's things to do, whatever it is. So I think it was kind of a taste. It's as far as like what's the go, because as I kind of mentioned in the new ebook, what's going to happen in 2022 is going to be massively different, right? I mean, it's one of the things where I really don't think people are fully grasping how dramatically different this is going to be when Google pulls the plug on some of these things, because it's that type of tracking, that type of stuff. We've gotten so used to it, and we've gotten so used to being able to track these things and target things in a certain way, whatever it is, and it's just going to evaporate, right? It's so our dependency on first party tracking and first party audiences, things like that we're hopefully collecting now already is just going to crank up. Some of the other first party tracking and things that we have is certainly not going away. That's going to be there, whatever it is, or hopefully we can move to more server to server type of applications, whatever. But there's people that just aren't going to be ready. And as I was kind of mentioned before, and during the warm up, I'm writing a pretty comprehensive article for Search Engine Journal that's going to be about this. Nice. And it's kind of like the coming doom of a cookieless world. And it's I've had some great interviews with one of the vice presidents over at the Internet Advertising Bureau, and she's kind of of the same mindset where she's just kind of going, this is going to be staggering, like how different this is. It's something we've gotten so used to doing things in a certain way, and that's just going to go away. And to the point to where a lot of that audience targeting and things that we adored and was working so well, especially on the programmatic front, like that's really going to evaporate. And so many channels have already started to flip over. They're starting to use other methodologies and things like that. There's some fun stuff over, like Stack Adapt's doing some fun stuff where they're using a new form of contextual targeting, but they're using machine learning to make sure they kind of replicate that kind of audience targeting that we're seeing already. So you're going to see a lot of that. I know Google's got with Flock and a few other things, they've got these concepts that they want to put out that I don't think are completely cooked, which is why they moved it a year, as far as I know. And so these types of things are they're going to happen. It's going to be dramatic. I mean, we'll see like exactly when they happen in 2022, but it's something where I think that'll be the story for 2022 is this stuff. I think everything else, like little tweaks and things like that, where it's like, oh, the match types changed. Yeah, that's going to be nothing compared to what you're seeing now. Like it's going to be some pretty dramatic type things that'll really shake our worlds for what it is, and hopefully you're prepared for them.
So could you give an example of what first party data is, and then ways that companies can increase the amount of first party data that they're sitting on to be able to utilize once this change, or to prepare for this change to happen?
Yeah.
Like go ahead. Is like when first party data, is that like my customer list, newsletter list that I could utilize for lookalikes and custom audiences, or is that out the door now too?
No, that's part of that set too. So first party data is basically anything that you collect on your own, right? And it's anything you collect on your website. And it can take many forms. It's not that cookies are dying, by the way. It's just one of the things where like first party cookies are still going to be around, and how you use them on your website and things like that. Although that's bound to probably change from a technology standpoint as well. But we're talking like if you collect a newsletter list for your in-house, or all the information you collect at checkout, or even other types of like information like that, or even broader stuff that you collect on your own as part of doing business. So even if you're collecting information from in the real world and kind of making use of that or whatever it is, these are all still your things, and they're still going to be around, and you can use that as in the very same way that you're using like custom audiences and whatnot. So those will still be there, and you'll still be able to get really specific on that front. And you're going to see a couple variants of that as well, to where the definition of first party, I think, is going to get a little murky in the new year, because you've got these big universes that have been created. So Google's a fantastic example of it, to where it's basically, as long as you kind of keep it in the family, you can track people in the same way. So like if it's bouncing between their programmatic solution or Google Ads or YouTube or whatever it is. These things are like, you'll have a good understanding of what these people look like, and the audience definitions may not be the same, but at the very least you can kind of say, hey, they're all at least in here and we can see them. But the idea of like where they go beyond that or other systems beyond that, whatever it is going to be harder to see. And so that kind of concept of duplication, stuff like that, is going to get really weird. But we've been telling people already, like, do whatever you can on that first party side now, like start yesterday and whatever it is. And whether it's, coming up with a newsletter or just telling people to register so you can get this, or, start your own cookie pools with a programmatic provider or something along those lines there, data warehouses. There's things you can do to kind of prepare for this type of stuff, but that's going to be what the future looks like. And that's going to how you're going to be really determine like how you can track these people and how you can talk to them again. So.
In the comments thread, Alan Fair says he's calling it Statageddon.
That's a good one. There's bound to be an Ageddon somewhere. We're using it a couple of years. Yeah.
Was it Mobilegeddon? Remember when everyone was preparing for Mobilegeddon and nothing happened?
Oh yeah, I was going to say they flipped that switch and everybody go, "Oh, was that it? Was everything cool?" All right,
it was like Y2K.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's going on? Nothing happened. But
By the way, Ali, Y2K was probably before you were born. So just clearing that up in the comments as well.
Literally the turn of the century. That's like, I love the fact that I can use that as a defining moment in my career. It's like, back in the turn of the century, we did that.
So first party data. And it goes back to the old, like, it sounds so cliche, but don't digital sharecrop, right? Make sure you're building your own newsletters, you're building your own information, you're building your own list. I always kind of use that for in the world of content marketing, right? Even with digital audio, digital video. Yeah, we're broadcasting on LinkedIn. Yeah, we're broadcasting on Twitter, maybe even doing something in Twitter Spaces, but we have the recording. Yeah. As at the end of the day, we have the recording, right? We have the copyrighted material that we can use for anything if any of those go away, right? Same thing with newsletters. Like, you have your audience done. You can build your audience, right? You can always go back to that. It's yours. So data warehousing, getting that first party data, getting those first party cookies together, everything else. And you said something about working with programmatic networks to make sure that what was that again?
You're building up your own audience. So they usually part of the process of programmatic is usually they'll put a cookie on your website, and it's really to help you define the audience that's already coming there, and you can segment that and say like, oh, this is the one that's on the checkout page, or this is this one, or lives in part of it, and that is technically creating a certain cookie pool, and they have a certain amount of time before they expire as well. But usually, if they're regular visitors, you can build it up. But at the very least, you can also build it up from an audience targeting standpoint, and you can learn a lot from that idea. And I think this is, and this I kind of make this point in the ebook as well, is I think what this is going to do is bring back a kind of return to more classical media planning styles, because we're going to have to get used to doing things from a contextual targeting standpoint, and the idea of like, all right, we're going to have to figure out like where that audience actually lives. It's so the idea with programmatic and a lot of these things is it used to be, the fun part about this is we could chase the audience around, and it wasn't really dependent on the website or where they were. It was kind of like, well, this person's there, and they're who I want, so I'm going to put an ad in front of them. So, but I think we're going to kind of back up a little bit to where it looks a little bit more contextual. So they're, right place, right time is going to have much more of an impact. Yeah, and which is cool, because that's the way I learned how to do it, and we did it for years before a lot of this targeting came about. So it's really, the fact that we're losing some of our toys here, that's fine. I can go back to playing it the way it did, but I think there's a lot of people that they've only had it this way, and it's going to really kind of shake them to the core.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And from like the consumer perspective, programmatic, it can get a bit obtrusive, right? Like, so it does follow you around, even if you've already purchased the product.
Yeah.
It continues. Like, I guess I go and I'm a sucker for this stuff. I'll be on Instagram and I'll see an ad for like a a t-shirt or a basketball or something. Like, oh, I gotta have it, so I'll buy it. And then, next thing I know, even after if I've received it in the mail or something like that, everywhere I go, I'm getting retargeted to buy this product. And every time I talk to a advertiser about it, they're like, well, then we're just reinforcing your purchase decision to make you realize that you bought the correct product. Like, no, you're not.
No, you're not.
You're not.
It's some sloppy stuff that you're doing right there. Yeah.
Exactly.
We tell our clients constantly. I mean, we obviously we can do that type of targeting for what we do, but we said, look, there's so many cooler things you could be doing, like with that retargeting, especially like once they bought it already, or basically shortening that window of like how often you're actually retargeting people, given like, hey, by this point they've probably done it. Like if, especially if that frequency count gets beyond like 10 or whatever it is, like they've probably made the decision or they've moved on, whatever it is. So do something else with that information now that you've got it. And I know one of the things we love to do with all that information is on actually targeting the people that have purchased and reinforcing it, because I think there's that, like, it's funny when you think consumer journey, everybody's got a really bad habit of getting up to like the point of like purchase as far as like what their job looks like. And then said, hey, I got them to buy it, I'm done. And there's everything after. There's usage, there's repurchase, there's advocacy, stuff like that, where you could really use a lot of information, kind of hit them again, whatever. We do some fun stuff where we kind of replicate the onboarding cycle for the more complicated clients, and use that and all that content that created that usually would go out over email, that nobody ends up reading because open rates suck. But then we kind of say, hey, look, since we've got all this stuff you created, let's hit them with it on social, or hit them on, be creative on how we do it on paid search, whatever it is. I mean, even if you think about some of the goofy stuff that happens on PPC when on brand searches, right? If you're targeting your brand searches properly with an audience of people that say, hey, look, the people that have bought it already, that are still trying to find you by typing your name into Google instead of actually typing the URL directly like they're supposed to, like that's a whole nother opportunity to give them another message that reinforces a purchase or reinforces the fact that they're good. So like hit them with other messages. We used to do stuff constantly with at Napster. We did it, when I was consulting with Match, when I was consulting for Sony and things like that, where those people that because they do it all the time, because that's just the way people work, is that they should just be able to know that, hey, it's Sony.com or Napster.com or whatever it is, but they still type it into the search engine. So what we do is we hit them with messaging that actually speaks to usage. It's kind of like, hey, you can make a custom playlist. You can do this, or we've done it for like meal kit companies. We had a meal kit client for years, and on those instances on social, we'd kind of show them like this week's recipes, or we'd kind of hit them with another message on there, how to do this stuff. But it's like, it's so much more powerful and so much easier. And they, we've had the numbers on these things are staggering. Like it's reduced churn by 20% in some instances. And you really make a good value of that click off paid search or whatever it is. So it's pretty amazing. And what you can do with this stuff, but people get lazy. They just kind of said, "Oh no, it's a flip we switch, and it's a switch we flip, and it just shows the product over and over again, and we've done our job, and it works to a certain level. So like, who cares the fact that that it's annoying to people? It's like I'm going, look, your frequencies are like 30. Why on earth are you still showing them this ad? They've seen it. Like it's like the old rules of reach and frequency used to be like at least 3, no more than 7, maybe 10 on a good day, like that. And I see frequencies on social media where it's like, it's through the roof. And I go like, how do you think you do this? And I see other agencies. I'll see like agencies that are advertising that'll break that on the rule. There's some joker that's advertising one of his SEO courses that keeps finding me on social media, and the frequency for that ad has got to be in the 30s. I'm going, I can't see this every time I log in. It goes like, I don't, I don't think you're that good at SEO. You're certainly not good at Facebook, because man, I shouldn't see the ad this many times. You're wasting money.
It's funny, a couple of things that you brought up, especially on the retention side for monthly recurring revenue, annual recurring revenue style subscriptions, is like, I recently purchased Everlywell, like one of the home health test kits, right? You can typically test for like allergies or whatever. So as soon as I received it, now I'm getting part of the email sequencing, right?
Yeah.
Really, they're trying to make sure that I use it, right?
Yeah.
And then because I haven't sent it back yet. I need to. I haven't sent it back yet. So but I'm getting an email pretty much every day, right?
Yeah.
Now and those emails know that I have the product. They're reinforcing, they're trying to get me to use it. They're showing me like all of these case studies and this and that. But when I go on Instagram or Facebook, I'm getting ads to buy the product.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
that disconnect is massive.
Where's the disconnect?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a huge disconnect.
And it's so easy to do this. I mean, even if it's still a little manual, although I've seen a couple of companies, some enterprise ones where we've got programming resources where we've actually hooked 2 different APIs up. So like their email list provider will kick the list over for the custom audience automatically. And that way we don't have to constantly upload it. But we've had plenty of other ones where we uploaded it once a week and got the job done. And it works like a charm. I mean, one of the ones we saw, we did some really fun work for Murad, which is a skincare company, and they sell these little tubs of like skincare stuff that's anti-aging medication or whatever, not medication, but a cream that it's really designed to be used up in a month. It's a nightly kind of like program, whatever it is, and they had a whole system of stuff that all this different content they developed with their celebrity spokespeople, whatever it is that was going on over our email, but their email open rate was sub 50. All right. And that was even if you really believed it, right? Because you know how people actually go through email, they use their inbox as the, basically deleting as they watch and whatever it is. So it counts as an open, but it's not a real open. It's not like they really saw it. They're just, they're going through it. And so that number is probably inflated as well. But in reality, I mean, average open rates according to MailChimp lately are still, hovering around, but anywhere between 15 and like 28% most of the time. And, it's funny about email is it's lucky that it's cheap and it's lucky it's as effective as it is. But otherwise, any other medium that where 70 to 80% of the what you send out is never seen, like you'd stop using that in a hot minute. But for some reason, email, we're all just perfectly comfortable with this number. And it's funny. You know what the highest open rate on average is for religion.
Interesting.
It was the funniest thing. I was kind of joking. So even God can't get people to open emails 30% of the time. But meanwhile, that information, that list, that just to kind of bring this full circle, that information, whatever, you can use that in a dozen other places now. Like that custom audience script you can use on Google ads, on Twitter ads, on LinkedIn. You can use it in programmatic sets these days. You can upload it there. Facebook obviously has got it. I mean, it's one of these where it's just a gold mine of information, and it's you can either retarget the people you have, you use it for lookalike audiences. It is just so much more powerful, for what it is. But meanwhile, most people are still using like the basic retargeting, people that like chase around cart abandoners, and I go like, it's basic. That's early aughts kind of stuff. There's so much more you can do these days, but.
What about opportunities outside of Google and Facebook? Or I'm sorry, Google and Microsoft and maybe Facebook. Google, Microsoft, and Meta.
And Meta. Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm still not used to calling it that yet either, right? Yeah.
Google, Microsoft, MGM. Microsoft, Meta, Google, and Microsoft. What are opportunities outside of that from a PPC perspective? Maybe that it can be a little bit more cost effective. Maybe that can open up more where people are, where certain audiences are. Like even like on the social side, like is TikTok doing anything right now, or any other social networks outside of the metaverse?
Yeah. So TikTok's definitely got some legs. That's going to go somewhere. I was never really a big fan of Snap. I think they're targeting.
I had McGowan on the other day. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love McGowan. Yeah. We used to run around to the shows together, but Snap, I mean, it's getting used. They're going to make their money. It's fine. But I don't know if it's definitely got the legs that just keep going for this stuff. It's certainly, I don't think it is what they thought it was going to be in this day and age, but their tracking is still weird. Their formats are still weird, whatever it is. And it's, I just don't, it doesn't fit from an audience standpoint as well as others. Meanwhile, TikTok, kind of like blew up, and especially during the pandemic, it went from, a bunch of 14-year-olds up to like really running the gamut all the way up to it. So now like everybody's mom is on TikTok now, and they get it, and it's fun, and their algorithm's smart, and advertisers can do some fun stuff. And it is a really specific type of ad that you have to create for it. You really have to make sure that you blend in with that environment. Otherwise you're going to stand out like a sore thumb. But It certainly makes for great. The targeting is great. The costs are surprisingly good. I given the demand in that market, you would think it'd be out there the charts, but it's fine actually. And then the one we push a lot because I just don't the people really understand it like is Pinterest. Pinterest is a gold mine. It's one of the things where if you look at it from an audience standpoint, it's like one, it still leans heavily women, and that is usually a very active target in multiple things. But big in millennial sets, big on just about every type of like audience you can think of. Like we're going after pet owners right now for one campaign. We've got another one. One of our clients is the largest funeral chain in the United States, and we're going to do a thing with that over on Pinterest as well, because the audience is just there. Like it's there. And again, the creative, a little customized, but you're kind of doing the pins kind of format to it. But it is it's pretty easy to get to. If you're doing any other type of creative elsewhere, you've probably got something that can fit and you can make it work.
Right.
If you're doing video, you can certainly use it. Video fits in there really nicely in that environment. And so those are kind of my two that I really say, like, take a look at that. I mean, obviously the audiences have to line up perfectly. That's just classic media planning 101. But for the most part, they get ignored too easily, and I think that's a good one. And then if you're on the business side, obviously LinkedIn is obviously that's in the Microsoft universe, but that one gets ignored as well. And that one, I think where people get thrown on that one is if you look at it from on the diagnostic metric standpoint, if you're looking at things like CPMs or CPCs or whatever it is, it gives this false appearance of being expensive because it's so targeted, right? But in reality, if you start comparing like quality of leads and the people that are actually coming over your site, then it's worth it, right? It actually lines up with the same CPA as you get maybe just about anywhere on there. And you can run a campaign in programmatic and find a lot more of them. But when you look at the CPA, it's the same level to it, and most likely it's much better. We've even done content programs on those platforms and looked at other more engagement style metrics to it, and the things like bounce rate and time on site, things like that are just way better from that LinkedIn audience than anything else. So it's
At SEJ, we about 2 years ago actually did a end of the year just comparison between social networks, right? Because we found ourselves talking about, we're getting less traffic from Facebook now. Facebook isn't sending traffic to publishers, and really focusing on Facebook. And we dug into the analytics, and we saw that our most traffic from a numbers perspective was coming from Facebook, but our most engaging traffic in terms of signing up to the newsletter, downloading ebooks, clicking on ads, whatever it may be, came from two places: LinkedIn and Twitter.
Yeah.
People from our audience, especially from a B2B perspective, and it sounds like so simple to figure out. Hey, what's the most engaging social network for B2B companies? LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
But it really was, and it's just like
people skip it.
It was very eye-opening because I think the inbox gives LinkedIn a really bad rap, right? Like if they would just get rid of the inbox spamming and the, hey, let's jump on a meeting with someone I've never met before in my life. I mean, with me, probably with you. I mean, we both remember what life was like before the internet. I'm just like, delete. Who cares? Like, whatever. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But a lot of people I talk to, they're like, they won't even go to LinkedIn because of the amount of like inbox spam. And it's just like, wow, like everything else about the platform is amazing. Yeah. So, they're spending more time on the site. They're actually, like I said, downloading, putting in leads, attending webinars, this and that, like that. And that's the organic traffic. And then from a paid perspective, the barrier of entry of getting all of that data around the lead, it's hardly anything. It's right there, right? You're getting their job title, their background, everything, right? So from a B2B perspective, running even like an ebook lead funnel thing on LinkedIn performs much better from my experience with the limited stuff that I do on the PPC side than almost anywhere else. And it can be overlooked. So going back a little bit to TikTok, right? Because what you kind of got me thinking, and you're talking about media buying before. And I remember when analytics came out. I remember back in the day when analytics came out. And the thing was, is that previous to getting in the analytics data, you, to your point earlier, you really had no idea. What is it? John Wanamaker, I think it was John Wanamaker quote, like half of my advertising is working. I'm not sure which half
It's
though.
not half.
It was like
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. So like, point is that like, and then suddenly everything goes direct response. Like, boom. If you're not getting the lead, you're not hitting the CPA, it's done. Cut this campaign.
Yeah.
Where is the value in branding? Because when I think of TikTok, right, I'm not, and I haven't tried this yet, but I'm thinking about maybe getting 100,000 people watching my company video,
Mhm.
right? And even if they're not clicking and buying, is there still value in branding,
Oh,
especially
absolutely.
on the PPC side?
Yeah. So I think the what's kind of been lost, and this is something when I teach my classes at UCLA and whatever it is, I actually have to give them a refresher on the consumer journey concept and the idea that like it's very rare that somebody shows up on your door ready to buy something, even if they've just seen the ad for it. Maybe in some you know low involvement type of product, you will catch them in that moment. But even the ones where you are seeing a great CPA or something along those lines, you're usually discounting all the work that went into every step before that, right? And it could be, especially on the awareness and consideration sides of things, these tips exist for a reason. There's a reason why we've talked about them in marketing for decades and decades now. It's like you can still call it from the funnel standpoint if you want. The consumer journey is a more accurate depiction as far as I'm concerned, but it's one of the things where just the classic understandings of it, it usually takes at least 3 to 5 like touch points before people are ready to move on something. And you've got complete control over that story, right? And whether or not you're telling that story through content marketing, or you're doing it with video on YouTube or all the other social media channels, or outdoor, I mean, who cares, right? But it's one of the things where like these things are part of that journey. These things are reinforcing your brand, so that when it comes time to actually make that decision, it may look like they're coming right into Google and typing your name or typing something that's really close to it and saying like, and he goes, oh, and that's the workhorse, that's the one that do it. But it's the reason why the CPA is so fantastic on Google, the reason why the CPA is so fantastic on Amazon and a couple other players, is because they're literally sitting right on top of the funnel, right? They're not on top of the funnel, they're sitting right on top of purchase, right? Like by the time they get to the point, they're ready to pull that trigger. And so like they get all the credit for the stuff. And meanwhile, just like you said, people are cutting those upper funnel activities because they really just don't understand the metrics, and they don't realize like how holistically important all these things are. And there's some platforms where we get a good understanding of it, to where you say, hey, look, this is clearly like part of this. And sometimes you can see it through Google Analytics because they do the story of it, and you can say, hey, these things were all involved. Within the Google universe itself, they usually do a pretty good job of it. If you're talking, if you get something that can track view through type of metrics, whatever it is, that gives you a better indicator. But like, we're still missing a lot of the really good attribution metrics that we really need to get a full understanding of it. But even then, like going back to my original point, we didn't know any of that before, like when we're just using traditional media, like all of those different parts of the media plan, whether it be a combination of like radio and television and outdoor and print, whatever it is, all these things working together, whatever it is, they used to look at these programs on a holistic level, saying, hey, look, we're spending this money on advertising, sales are here. Let's make sure that we look at it, that's our ROI, or that's our ROAS for what we're doing, is the combination of these things working together to do it. And in these days, we've got other metrics we can look at to make sure that each player is playing its part on this one. So you can basically say, hey, look, if I'm running video, we've got the metrics to prove that they're being seen, that they're engaging with it, they're liking in it, they're sharing it, whatever it is. And so we know like the message is at least making a difference on there. We've got that far.
Yep.
Even if they're not pulling the trigger to make a sale. Same thing goes with a TikTok, where like if they're watching the dances, if they're sharing it, if they're recreating it themselves, or whatever it is, those things that matter on that level as well. There's so many things where we've got this information, and sure, you may be getting like a small indication of sales on this thing, and that actually should just be encouraging. But I think where people really screw it up when it comes to attribution these days is that they basically compare everybody in the same matter, right? And it's one of the things where like, hey, look, if you're it's just not fair to compare Google search ads against YouTube ads, right? They have different purposes. They do different things, but one of the things where if you looked at it as far as like how these things are operating together and what influences what, it's making a difference. I used to tell a story back when I was running things at Napster for a stretch, whatever. When I first came on board there, they were just spending all kinds of money because they were still kind of like in this startup mode when they got the cash, and they were running radio, and they were doing some print stuff. They used to do events. They used to do a bunch of this type of stuff. And then when I came on board, I kind of cleaned up a lot of their digital side of things. That's what I was hired for. And we got SEO in check, we got paid search in check, we got social started, basically all those things. And the CPAs were tight. We finally got rid of the waste. We dumped a lot of the affiliate stuff, which was just damaging things. And so we got these things to a nice tight level. And because it was working so well, I remember the VP of marketing goes, "Great, we're going to go out and cut this old stuff out of here." So they cut radio, they cut things. And I remember telling him up and down, he goes, "Don't do that. That's your whole upper funnel. That's everything that's like driving this from a branding standpoint. It's making the difference in the world." And sure enough, they cut it anyway, and they stopped doing these things. And suddenly the CPAs for paid search and the CPAs for everything else we're doing started to just creep back up. Like just started going back up, and they're coming to me, "What's happening? What's going on with this?" I go, "Because it's doing all the work now. That's why you're going to have to pay extra more to get this kind of stuff." And these things still matter, even if you can't track them on the level you want to. Everything, doesn't have to be direct marketing. And so give it a shot. That's one of the reasons why we still heavily recommend programmatic and a lot of other upper funnel type of activity, especially for brand new brands where nobody knows who you are. There's no reason why you shouldn't be doing this types of things. I know your budget's pretty tight, but give me a break. Just, try it. If like one things where if you're run a paid search campaign just with your brand, like just on its own, and see how much action you get. And it's probably not a lot, right? But if you run that and you're running a programmatic campaign, like suddenly those ads will skyrocket because they're going, "Hey, this is fantastic. It's working." Because somebody else, that touch point got initiated somewhere else, and now they know your brand. Now they know to look for you, whatever it is. So it's you still got to do the old school stuff. It's not just a matter of like, "Hey, we're just going to run everything on Facebook and Google ads and it's going to be great." I think people, when they changed the rules on Facebook this year, I think people got a hard history lesson on that. Basically said like, "Oh, what happened?" I go, that's happened. It wasn't, it was doing all the work for you. Now we can't use that tool. So now you got to think smart and you got to go old school on this stuff. But
I love it. And I really like what you said. Do what works within that platform, right?
Yeah.
It's not all the same across the board. If I can get people doing I don't know, my company comes up with a dance or something, or like, maybe like a commercial jingle that everyone's doing a specific thing to on TikTok and it explodes. There's a lot of value there. It may not be, so Popeye's chicken sandwiches.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's actually a great example. The chicken sandwich wars. So I don't think that a PPC campaign started the chicken sandwich wars. I think it was people on social media talking about how long the line is, this and that. There's a pickle. Do you want a pickle? Do you want a pickle? Yada, yada, yada. And it just exploded. Right. And suddenly, at least now here in Santa Clarita, there's 3 Popeyes being built. Popeyes is expanding like crazy here.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even thought about going to Popeyes a couple of years ago. It wasn't my thing, but you know what? It got me back. It got me back into Popeyes.
I tried it. I don't really eat fast food anymore, but like I said, I'll give this a shot and see what it is. It's not as good as my local pub down the street who makes a hell of a chicken sandwich, but it's good for fast food. It is what it is.
Not bad, right?
But but it's funny. It's that I think the problem is we get all these fun new tools, which they're fun and they're effective and they have a place to it, and we think like they're doing the work whenever it is. But in classically, you go back and you look at it from like an old school marketing standpoint, like what happened with that Popeyes chicken sandwich is a classic word of mouth marketing, right? How that word of mouth manifested in modern times was over social media, but it's the same trick. It's like it used to be a whisper campaign or people talking at the beauty shop or whatever it is, kind of stuff. Those things were on a much higher. So now we've got this weaponized form of it, which good or bad, it certainly is a lot more efficient, but it gets the job done. So that's funny. I see Ali asked this question.
Yeah, I was.
Do we
It's
need
a
to
good
focus
question. I was
on
going to
every,
ask you that next.
yeah, do we need to focus on every platform available? And no, like it's not like that. This is why I talk a lot about media planning, is the idea of like one of the classic tenets of media planning is knowing your target audience and then figuring out where that target audience lives and then going out and hanging out with them there. Right. So it's one of the things where like it's, you know, don't do TikTok just because TikTok's the new bright, shiny object on the street right now. It's one of the things where, like, if you don't have the audience that aligns with that kind of place, don't go there, right? You know, it's one of the things where if you're trying to advertise, you know, like insurance to old people, they're not going to be on TikTok and they don't care about your dancing, right? They're just wondering what their niece is doing in the other room when they come to visit, right? But it's one of the things where like you still have to do that kind of level of research and understand what these type of people are. And that again, the tools to get to them and the opportunities to get to them are just way better. And we've got so many things we can do with this stuff, but it's so many people think they go right to the tactic, right? They go right to like, hey, everybody's on Facebook, so let's do this, or everybody's doing TikTok, let's do this, whatever it is. We have to be on these things. This is the way it works. I still see it. I answer a lot of questions on Quora, and people will ask these really goofy questions where it's like, hey, which one's better, Facebook or Google? And it's kind of like, well, you know, where your audience is. That's the answer. Like it's not a, you don't compare media based on like which one's better. It doesn't work that way. It's, you know, it's like you can't say, hey, which magazine is better, you know, Popular Mechanics or Vogue, or it's like those are two different audience sets. Like you're trying to do different stuff in there. I'm not going to put the ad there if it doesn't make any sense. But you know, I'm trying to sell woodworking tools. I'm not going to put it in Vogue. I mean, it's you gotta know where this stuff is, and these things still count. And even in modern times when we've got so many different ways to target people, but you still got to know your target. You still got to know where they live. I mean, it's classic stuff, but it still works for a reason.
And then how to approach them where they are, right? Yeah. Because, you know, if I'm on LinkedIn, I'm just looking at my Instagram right now to see what ads I get while I'm flipping through stories. So I'm getting a lot of clothes. I'm getting a lot of ads for pants for some reason. I don't know what I did to trip that off, but I'm getting a bunch of ads for pants, for sweatpants, for slim fit commuter joggers. I don't know what a commuter jogger is, but I'm getting lots of ads for pants. So yeah, you know, that may work if I'm on LinkedIn. Or I'm sorry, if I'm on Instagram, but if I'm on LinkedIn, pant ad, maybe some business casual joggers, maybe some pajama jeans, something that I can wear when I have to go into the office once a month or on a client meeting in real life again, and they're comfortable, right? Yeah. So point being is that you want to also, I would imagine, even if the product is the same, adjust the creative and the messaging based upon the mindset that someone has when they're on that platform. And it's getting a little bit more. I've also noticed that, especially over the past couple months, with all the design changes and the usability changes on these platforms, especially in app form. I'll be on LinkedIn, but if you ask, like, I'll be scrolling through LinkedIn, but if you ask me what platform I'm on, I wouldn't know. Like they all look so similar sometimes at the end of the day, but on the desktop, it's an extremely different point. So my point is just to reinforce that it makes so much sense to make sure that, you know, maybe there is an opportunity to sell pants on LinkedIn, but just make sure that they're work pants or something like that. I don't know. I don't know, maybe a bad example, but that's what I got.
It's not the time to try and sell me a Star Wars shirt is on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, it's not,
maybe a tie, maybe a Star Wars tie or Star Wars socks.
Yeah. Context still matters, you know, like it's you know, people think they can throw this kind of stuff away and it still works. It still matters. And the problem is that the people that don't think it matters, the people think they can just kind of throw this stuff up and let it roll, are the ones that come back later on and go, yeah, you know what, we tried Facebook and it doesn't work, or we tried this and it doesn't work. And I go like, well, no, you didn't really try it. You tried something, right? But like, you didn't really do all the work that needs to be. And this is why, you know, I blame it a lot on the idea we've got so many, kind of like do-it-yourself platforms out there. You know, it's like, and you know, Google and Facebook and everybody else really kind of sold everybody on this idea of like, hey, look, anybody can walk up, start an account, and start advertising. You know, put your small business up here, do this work, and you go like, no, it's you know, it's not that simple. It, you know, reminds me of the revolution years ago when like like desktop design software became a thing, like when you could do your own like layouts for, it's really cute for your family newsletter and things like that. But people thought they were suddenly like instant graphic designers because they knew how to like work.
Yeah.
It's like some basic, the design kind of goes, you're really not. And, you've also got 8 fonts on that page and your images don't make any sense or whatever it is. Like, the designers are a trade profession. So it's marketing. It's like, it's anybody, it's very accessible. It's something you can learn to do, but it doesn't mean just everybody can do it right out of the box. And it's, it's weird.
Exactly. I had Jamie Indigo on the other week as well, with part of the, where is she now? D-Crawl, part of that team. And one quote that she had that I really liked was, your website is not a ransom note. So there's no reason to have multiple different fonts on your website or your landing page. Yeah. I just love that. It really hit a thread. And that's what kind of got me thinking too, when you had mentioned Snap. So when I think of Snap advertising, I think of agencies advertising on Snap or brands advertising on Snap. I think they do have a solution for kind of do it yourself, but to your point, like you can't just it's not a copy and paste scenario, right?
Yeah.
Wherever you're advertising, you can't just do that across the board. So before we sign off, and we're almost an hour in already, so this has gone by really quickly. For those of you that are watching, or for listening, I'm going to describe Jeff's background a little bit. So to your right, it looks like you have a nice little collection, little bar collection there.
Oh, yeah.
But to your left, is that a stand-up bass or a cello?
It is. Yeah, it's a stand-up bass. So it's I played drums mostly through junior high and high school. And in high school, I started playing other brass instruments and things like that. But I always, because I'm a big guy and I could carry it, I played the larger instruments. So like, because I could actually march with the sousaphone, I learned how to play that and a few other things. So I kind of leaned towards the lower end of certain things. And I had a drum set for a while, and I ditched it not too long ago, just because it just wasn't getting out to play it. But I decided like I really wanted to pick up another instrument, and I figured like, I've always loved this instrument. I wanted to learn how to play it again. And of course nobody bothers to tell me like it's one of the hardest instruments to learn as far as strings goes, because there's no frets on it. It's massive. It's one of the things where like there's not as much education that you can get on this stuff. You really do have to get lessons on it. So I've had it. I'm getting better at it, but it's one of the things where I still kind of joke that it don't really challenge me to play it in front of anybody, because you're just going to get like hot cross buns or something on it at this point. It's not really for public consumption at this stage. But this is funny. This background, people look at it. Sometimes people think it is just a fake background, and I have to get up and dance around in it just to prove it's really there. But like, I really do have a library, and
it's really optimal.
So it is what it is. But this room that I'm in is actually the front of the house, and this is a house from like the 1920s, and it was probably the living room like back in the day, but it's so small you can imagine like it's this is the entire room. It doesn't get any bigger from here, but there's a fireplace behind me and
nice.
A few other things, but
it's comfy.
Yeah, so like when I bought the place, I kind of said, well, I'm just going to make this more into kind of like a Professor Higgins gentleman's library kind of thing, and build bookshelves and put stuff in it. And, it's a lot of my stuff from my travels is up in here and whatever, but it's funny. I still have friends that come over and goes, it'd be great in here to put a television. Go, no, it's not what it's for. I have a big room in the other room with my big giant television and everything's to it. This is to sit back and reflect and work and things like that.
Yeah. We don't have a TV in our living room either. We did that on purpose. We have one outside.
Yeah. We got one by the pool. We've got one so we can float and watch.
Yeah,
and stuff like
one of the perks of living in Southern California, right?
Yeah.
So it's really been a pleasure. And you brought up Hot Cross Buns. I think the only 3 songs I can play on the bass are Hot Cross Buns, Smoke on the Water, and Inagaga de Vida.
Nice.
If I'm lucky, and I can still play. And I think they're all like renditions of each other, more or less.
Yeah, they really are the same song.
Maybe Redemption Song. Maybe Redemption Song as well.
Oh, Redemption's that's a good pull.
yeah. Redemption Song, and then Burn One Down, which is pretty much the same exact same exact riff, right? So Anyway, where can I dropped your Twitter in here, account Zero, so I'm making the connection with the Zero shirt as well. Where else can folks find you online, Jeff?
So the count 01, and that's zero with an X, because it's because the original Z1 wasn't taken, and it's a reference to a William Gibson novel back in the 90s, but the 80s rather. But that's me just about everywhere you go. So if you look on Instagram, if you look on Facebook, if you look whatever it is, it's the same type of things to it. I think the only place I don't use it is on LinkedIn, but I'm on all the things. Twitter is probably the best place if you really want to talk media. That's the best place to go. And then I'm on Quora as well. I answer a lot of questions on Quora, so it's one of these where if you want to follow there, and I talk a lot about SEO, but I just media in general on there, and then the occasional goofy question about Star Wars or how to make a cocktail or whatever it is. But yeah.
There you go.
But it's just about everywhere on that. That's the best places to find me. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn if you like. I'm getting better about sharing content on that one, but I haven't completely encompassed that in there. But always happy for the follow and the discussion on that front, and love to answer questions on Twitter. You usually see me most of the time up there, kind of challenging people on their bad myths that are out there about stuff. Thanks so much, Loren, for letting me publish a lot of the articles that I have on Search Engine Journal that are just all about kind of like tearing down a lot of these sacred cows that are in the SEO world and some of the other things. It's really what I've always wanted to write. So I'm happy to have a home over there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not very often you get a true professor contributing to the site as well. So that, by the way, I know we're a little bit over time, but how did the UCLA thing start?
So
did they reach it?
It's funny. I was a guest speaker for another professor who found me. I think it was on Twitter or some type of social media, or maybe somebody speaks somewhere else, whatever it is, and said, you want to come in and do a guest slot. And he and I became friends. And in my thinking for like what my career 2.0 was going to look like is that I wanted to get more into teaching, and it's something I've always liked doing. And as you know, like I've spoken all over the world, and so I was very comfortable with this concept already, and thought, well, that's something maybe I can get into. And so originally I asked him to kind of mentor me a little bit on like what it would take to get into teaching. And I said, well, I'll do one better. I'll make the introduction at UCLA. And then suddenly I was getting interviewed, and suddenly classes were getting formed and stuff like that. So now it's just another job. So I'm basically working two jobs now, and one of them happens to be, running an agency. So, but yeah. And once it kicked in, we're just about every semester I'm doing both of my main classes, and we're working on a third that is kind of like a transitional thing for people that are coming out of grad school and maybe don't ever necessarily have it. But it's like the state of like college education is still, haven't completely absorbed digital into the curriculum. It's something where there's still like these outside classes too, which I'm more than happy to teach, but it's one of the things where it's still kind of this outsider in most curriculums, and maybe one day I'll let it absorb. I always kind of joke that I'm really trying to teach people not to become digital marketers, but become marketers that use digital. And one day the digital will just drop off, and it'll just be the status quo.
You can adopt to the metaverse, go from digital to meta.
Yep.
So meta world peace. We'll do it.
There you go.
Jeff, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed catching up with you, learning more about PPC, learning more about the changes going in the next year, especially, the first party data, the impending Statageddon, right? Loss of third party data. So it's been a pleasure. We'll follow up probably on SEJ's social account with some more information and get back to you about some of these points. I think they're fantastic. And just as a reminder to all listeners and viewers out there, you can go to searchenginejournal.com/PPC-trends-2022, or just search Google for PPC Trends 2022 and download SEJ's ebook, where Jeff has contributed along with multiple other PPC experts such as Akvile DeFazio, Brad Geddes, Nava Hopkins, and Amy Bishop. So, Jeff, it's been a real pleasure today. Thank you again
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all of our listeners and viewers who have stuck around, and all of you that have been super active on LinkedIn, especially Ali and Stephanie. So it's been really great getting this interaction during the live show. And thank you for all of our listeners who are listening to us in a couple of days in your cars or in the gym or while you're working. It's been a pleasure. We hope we can help you out. Jeff, I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.
You as well. I'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Search Engine Journal Show. If you liked this episode, subscribe to our channel for so much more and click the notification bell so you don't miss a thing.